Shalom, peace and blessings to Israel, and to anyone who is listening, and to anyone who is trying to understand and study the doctrine of the Most High, which is this doctrine called Hebrew Israelite, right? Now, I want to always meditate as much as I can, and I want to even the soil, right? Now, remember that we came from soil, right? So the soil that we see today and us are just the same, right? So when the wind comes, it evens the soil, or it evens our minds, right? That's why sometimes it feels really good when we are blown by the wind, right? Because it balances our mood, it eases our pains, it eases up our burdens, that we may have clarity in our minds, that we may not carry those heavy stuff, right? Just remember, studying this doctrine is heavy. Same as resisting flesh is also heavy. Same as what else? Resisting the flesh, repenting, studying doctrine, all of that stuff, right? So whether if it feeds your flesh or it feeds your spirit, there will always be a challenge to it, right? One thing that I do sometimes is to even the soul or calm my mind, right? That I may not spark the friction between the flesh versus the flesh, right? Because when the words or the spirits are absent, what remains are the flesh, right? Or the flesh. So when you fill yourself with good stuff, you will be filled with light. And that light is the spirit or the word, right? It's the same thing. You can see that in John 6 and 63. It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life, right? So when you are, for humans, our energy is the word, right? Our life is the word. Same goes for our appliances. The power of appliances are electricity, right? So for us humans, our life is the word, and the words is the spirit, right? So it's the same thing, right? So that's my first message to you. And when you fill yourself with power, with light, right, you will then be filled with goodness, right? And that gets through the eye, right? Because in Matthew 6 and 22 says that the light of the body is the eye, right? Now, if therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light, right? When you are thinking of positive stuff, pure thoughts, right, you will then be filled and refreshed with positive feelings, right? Therefore, the burden in your, the burden in your heart, in your mind will balance, right? And that's how you even the soil, right? Which is you, right? Because we came from soil, right? I think it's Ecclesiastes 3 and 20. All go unto one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again, right? So that's where we came from, right? So once we fill ourselves with the light, which is the spirit, which is the word, we then balance or even the soul, right? And that's what we must do in this walk, right? That we may have balance, and with balance brings forth composure, right? And with composure we were able to think, right? Remember when Satan tempted Christ, he fought it with words, right? So you have to have the right balance of spirit and the flesh, right? Because the absence of words is the presence of your flesh and the flesh of the world, right? And once those two collaborate with each other, it creates friction, and friction creates a spark or lust, right? And that brings forth the fruits of the flesh, right? And these are the works or the fruits of the flesh, right? This is the book of Galatians chapter 5 and verse 19, right? So now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, right? So lust, so sin starts from lust, right? Your desires, right? So when you're desired, when you what do you call this? When you desire the flesh, it will create friction with your flesh, and that creates the spark or the desire, right? And come forth the temptation, right? Because when you are close to temptation, you are more likely to commit sin, right? And sin is the what? Transgression of the law, right? First John in 5 and 3. Oops. First John 3 and verse 4, right? Whosoever committed sin transgresseth also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law, right? So there are ways on how to manage your composure in this walk, right? And first is to walk with the Spirit, right? I think that's in the book of James 1 and 2. And mali. So one of the ways to endure in this walk is to first walk with the Spirit, right? This is the book of Galatians chapter 5 and verse 16. This I say that walk in the Spirit and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh, right? Because to have battle with the flesh is to create friction, right? And friction creates spark, right? For the flesh lusted against the Spirit, and the Spirit lusted against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other. So what most people do is to shake it off, right? That's the same as, when a shifter shakes off the soil, right? It shakes off the mood, right? So shaking off your spirit balances your mood. And through the balance of your mood, it brings forth composure and brings forth clarity, right? And that's the fruits of the Spirit, right? Pwede pala tong Galatians 5.